This is something that I don't really... Are we live? I think we're live on air.
It says we're live, yeah.
Yeah. The fun of it all. Chat, streaming, go live. I think so. It should show in the actual YouTube thing. I'm going to move this over. Yeah. And bam. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, yeah. Happy St. Pat's, Mr. Cosman. Public, none. Live streaming.
Oops. Something. Stream is having connection issues.
Huh.
I'm on the YouTube. The chat is there, but our video is not live on there.
Okay. So what is it?
This guy here, if that helps.
Okay. What is it that I'm missing?
Oh no. Is it?
Hello.
It keeps saying, "Oops, stream looks like your stream is having connection issues."
Okay. That is going. That is going. What else is it that I need to know about?
I don't know. Mine
Unless
saying I'm a 7 out of 10 on my network connection. What is yours reading?
yes, same. I am no data. Edit. No. Edit. Public. 8 p.m. What part?
Is working.
The chat is working. Cancel. Figuring out stuff. Great. Live. So we're live here. Is there anything else to know about? Band list 2, chat overlay, setup, stream is good. Live streaming. Okay, what is edit? Public. Cancel. I'm not sure on the other thing. Share screen, invite guests. Oh, okay. It's working.
Okay.
Great.
All right. All right.
As long as it's working. This is the most important thing.
Sure.
Hey, guys. Mike Hoover, into media. And it appears as though Cosman, I'm not too sure. So we kind of had to race up to this situation. Nick Hill is not going to be able to be with us today, but we have the mighty Gear Stuff and Things, Stephen Barton. Yeah. We always want to put a Bartman on it. What is up with that, Stephen? Do you get that?
Simpsons
is that a
nostalgia.
Thing?
Yeah,
nostalgia. It's so nostalgic. you know, Bartman. Yeah. I've actually had to send Nick Hill messages. I'd be like, it's Bart, not Bartman. It's Barton. Maybe this is a CTA we have to make for the show.
The call to action is that my name is not Bartman.
By the way, CTA, not Bart, man, Barton. It's funny because I grew up with a pal who is a Barton, also a Stephen Barton.
Nice.
When I was a childhood prodigy. I don't know, whatever it means. But yeah, welcome everyone to the stream. This here is the Bunn, and that there is Stephen Barton. Nick Hill is on a work. He can't do a connection today, and so, which is fine. We don't need you, Nick Hill. No, we do. We love the Nick Hill. We miss you, Nick Hill. Oh, my lighting is very. I look like I'm in the darkness, which is the whole thing with the baritone obsessed. Is we only care about the darkness. We don't care about the bass. Let's be real.
In all fairness, you put settings on my camera when I was at your house last year, and I have not changed them.
Really?
So whatever.
So you still have that
oh,
okay.
My camera is literally what I've been using ever since. I didn't change anything.
I'm sorry. It's a more neutral profile, but it may have made your life more difficult. I hope not.
It's made color grading easier, actually. Totally unrelated to what we're here for, but yeah. I just went with it.
Yeah, because your stuff looks great. I'm glad that it has helped. I'm just using a webcam right now, not a sick camera like you're using, which is why your resolution looks so crispy.
It looks good. I have a GoPro that I was gonna use, but this just looks better.
Same. I have a GoPro that just today, like literally an hour before this, the dongle showed up that will allow me to sort of convert it from GoPro to a webcam type of. Yeah, exactly that thing.
Yeah, I just
the
got
same one
as well. I literally got one today.
Amazing. We're twins.
Thanks, Amazon.
Thanks. Yeah, I got mine via Best Buy.
Nice.
Not that Best Buy is something that I care to support. I prefer local, but that's just where it was available. Anyhow, hello, Anthony Nieto. I always say it wrong. I'm sorry. Mike Hoover and Into Media. Hope you guys are well. Today we are doing it a little bit different. Should we do this view? This view. What do you think?
Oh, that's nice.
You like that one?
I'm into that one.
Okay, we're going to do this one. And because if we do this, it looks, looks better. Or get the Bartman mask. And I'm going to say we're going to go with Barton. But today on the show, it's a little bit different as you can see. And this is bandless for those who don't know, but I'm sure everybody knows. And the whole show is all about being a solo creator, specifically in the space of music, and just kind of going for it. What do we need to concern ourselves with? What maybe is in our way? How do we get in our own way? That's a huge thing. That's maybe the biggest part of this whole bandless thing, is how do we And today's all about the right thing. And we get really caught up in this whole idea of the right thing. Am I doing the right thing? What is the right thing to do? I'm not going to do something until I know what the right thing is. And Stephen, is this something that you're familiar with?
Yeah. There's lots of random situations. I guess it's, depends on how you look at it. Am I doing the right thing? Am I waiting for the right thing to occur? Yeah. Lots of situations.
Yeah. So yeah, today it's all about like waiting for the right collaborator, the right riffs, the right mix, the right video, the right marketing. What is and when the right thing? It's something that we all kind of hesitate on. And how do I know that I'm making the right choices? And what we're going to get into is really just going for it and not really concerning ourselves so much with the right thing. So for those of you who do not know, this here is Stephen Barton, and he runs the YouTube channel Gear Stuff and Things. And Nick Hill is on a work jam today out in Florida, not able to join us, but maybe he's joining us in the comments. Not exactly sure. But we're going to get into today's topic. I don't have everything set up because we had to sort of rejig the show in terms of patrons and, on-screen stuff and all that kind of stuff. But everybody with us over at Patreon, highly appreciate it. I'm going to drop the link in the comments here in the comment feed. If you're interested in Patreon, but also you can see who's with us and what's going on with Patreon if you'd like to get involved. Bam. Quick comment here. Didn't hear from you on Discord. Thought you guys canceled today. Almost forgot Nick wasn't going to be here. Strung Out says, yeah, little bit of a hustle today. Things are a little bit funny, but we're gonna make it work. And yeah, Stephen is the magic ingredient in today's show. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah. But the first point, do you want to get into it, Stephen?
Sure, we can do that.
All right. So the first point is effing up is good. And this is something that's highly overlooked. The path to the right thing is filled with a ton of the wrong thing. And, can you echo or elaborate on the just going for it? It's like not being too caught up in like, am I doing the right thing? Just going for it and figuring out along the way what the right thing is. And I think this is a case for you specifically in terms of your YouTube channel. You just went for it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really care too much. You're like, I'm not going to come out with the best channel. I'm just going to start a channel and just go for it. And I feel like this is a little bit a part of your personality and a part of your methodology. It's like, just go for it. And as you do it, it will get better. And maybe some of the things that you did right off the top. So something you've echoed in the past is your first video, which you're not terribly fond of, is one of your greatest videos. It has the most amount of views, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that we might not be the most fond of as creators still seem to work, as well as moving forward and doing the thing allows us to do better. Do you have anything to kind of add to that in terms of your personal perspective and experience?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it just comes down to, I guess it's where like I'm in a band, so there are other people, but in this instance, it's with YouTube, I guess. I wasn't. If I didn't just do it, I wasn't. I wouldn't have done anything at all. Like I would have just continued to kind of toy with the idea and do other things. So the only way to really to jump on it was to just give it a shot and see where it went. I think because I did it that way, I've definitely spent a bit more time early on, at least, feeling like I wasn't sure if I should continue to do it.
Right.
So I'm very quiet. Sorry.
In terms,
Plasma
yeah,
chicken.
in my headphones, it sounds amazing, but yeah, the viewing audience is going to have a better perspective on that.
Is it better now? Maybe. All right.
Yeah, I think just being really close to the mic is the thing to do.
All right then. But yeah, I don't know. You just have to. The only way you can figure out if you're, gonna get better at it is to, take a swing on it. I don't know. Some of this stuff gets really philosophical, as often these conversations do. But yeah, I don't know. If you don't try, then you know. How are you gonna know if you're any good at it or if you're failing at it? Either way, the failing part of it is kind of the lesson, right?
Yeah. Which is an amazing sort of illumination there in terms of the fear of failure. The fear of failure is the thing that will stop you in your tracks. However, facing failure is the thing that is going to allow you the most momentum, I think.
Oh, absolutely it is.
Yeah.
It's the only way forward.
Yeah. Would you say, Stephen, that, so my thinking on it is the industrial model, the industrial sort of complex where, you go to school, you study this thing, you get the good grades, you get chosen for the job, you do the job, you get the pay, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that process that we're all groomed by, all of us, in the Western world anyway, is one of the things that kind of holds us back from saying F it and just going for it.
Oh, without question. I mean, I think everyone's guilty of that to some regard, and especially if they're different phases of life. Especially if you are someone who's grown up in that. I mean, there are people out there that are fortunate enough that their families and parents and stuff around them were encouraging for them to do the thing they want to pursue, regardless of how silly or frivolous it may be. But for the most part, yeah, you're right. Most folks are kind of, you're going to go to college and get whatever job, or in, the most plain terms, and, you don't really do anything with your life. And if someone was to look at it from the outside in, I suppose.
Not to diminish people who are caught in that in any way, but
I mean,
it's a thing that happens.
Absolutely caught in that. I got no shame in it at all. That's normal.
Yeah.
It's just life.
Yeah. Wanting to know that it's right before it's right, which is interesting. It's that whole chicken and the egg kind of situation.
Oh, without question.
Yeah. Few more joining us. Turbo Plasma saying it's all good. Renato, hello. Aloha. Hope you're well. A few more points. Right. We can calculate options, but we can't calculate outcomes. And this is an interesting thing to get caught up in, because I think even as creative people, where we already know, like we have no control if it works or not, but still we get caught up in this idea of, I want to make sure that the outcome is going to land. And if anybody in the history of humanity ever figured that out, they would be billionaires. Like the stock market, they can't calculate outcomes. They can do some pretty decent projections or predictions or whatever based on certain amount of data, but there is no guarantees in anything in this world. Maybe in physics, there's certain ideas that you can calculate a prediction where, you're going to calculate the spin of an object on the other side of the universe or whatever. And it's reliable information to some extent. But in terms of the human experience, in terms of doing something that is unknown, so I'm going to make something, I'm going to put it out into the world. Like it just doesn't even make sense to me that there is a prediction to be able to do that right. And the more that I personally look at it as a person making things, the more absurd it looks. And I question, like, why was I so hesitant maybe earlier on with certain things at a certain point? So I'm curious, Stephen, when you were younger, so when you were, let's say, teenager or just emerging out of your teens, do you feel like you were less inhibited and more just like kind of F it, go for it than you are now?
I would say in certain aspects of my life, sure, I was a little more reckless, but I don't think I was self-aware at the time and in the same way that I would be now, if that makes sense.
Same.
So yeah, I didn't care, and
Yeah.
I kind of just threw caution to the wind, but because I was younger, but it wasn't because I was making a conscious effort to do so. If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And what do you have to say about now in terms of being a guy, making stuff, being a guy, putting stuff out? So you're doing it on multiple levels. You do a podcast with your partner, you do a band, you do your own personal musical projects, you do a YouTube channel, you do a lot of stuff. And do you think like just like putting it into like a list format, a organized format, and just kind of going for it and keeping track of what works? Do you keep track of what works and attempt to do more of that? Or do you, are you still at a point where you're just kind of like just throwing things out there and whatever lands, what lands, and whatever doesn't, whatever?
I think with YouTube, I'm a bit more calculated with my decision making now, just because I look at it like
Right.
the audience that is coming to watch things that I'm doing or that you're doing or Nick's doing. We're all kind of doing our own version of the same thing. There tends to be a certain bit of information that those folks come for or continue to come to the page for. So with that stuff, I do make a conscious effort to try to do things that I think will appeal to who's watching. But at the same time, occasionally I will do things that I just want to do there. So that's why there's videos that are just me, messing with pedals and stuff.
Right.
Because I realize that those videos never do great. They usually over time start to get a lot of plays. Or if for whatever reason that particular item becomes popular, then you'll see a jump in the plays. But outside of that, in music stuff, I still kind of just kind of throw shit at a wall and hope something sticks. I've definitely spent time in, I've been doing Close the Hatch now for 9 years. We've definitely had periods of time where I, like, as the band leader, made a conscious effort to be like, okay, we're gonna, like, we did a couple albums in a row that were much more straightforward sludge-doom stuff with me making them more aggressive on purpose. And those records, ironically, were the two that, up until this last one, had gotten the most press kind of organically. But it was just because it was really specific to a niche. And it felt targeted. And it also is a weird thing, as this is without going too much of a tangent on it. At the time when I was doing it, I thought I was doing it to try to appeal to a certain group of people that I knew liked what we were doing, that was kind of in that territory already, and I hoped that it would provide us more opportunities with those bands and those artists. and it did. But as time went on, I kind of was like, oh, this is not what I want to continue to do, and I, you know, I feel like we're going to end up maybe completely conscious of the fact that I'm going to ostracize myself from this world in some regard, because I don't I made it a point to do something to please someone else, and those records are still good, but that's what I hear when I listen to them. Like, there's stuff about them I like, but I still hear like, oh well, that idea feels like it was forced to me. Uh, but I don't know. Now I just kind of
Mhm.
look at it like I'm, I'm almost 40. I'm gonna just do whatever makes me enjoy creating.
Yeah. Um, and so would you say that so yeah, like, there's something about doing what works, doing the right thing.
Hmm.
By the way, am I glitching out right now? Can you hear what I'm talking about?
I can hear you. Your video is freezing up a little.
Great.
You're just really
But
good at the robot.
so yeah, I that is one of my nicknames, Roboto,
Nice.
Scotto Roboto. But so appealing to the crowd, appealing to the niche, paying attention to what works.
Hmm.
It's not very, at least for me, it's not very satisfying as a creative person. I'm always way more interested in the disruption, like just like stirring it up a little bit. And I feel like what you're doing with Close to the Hatch, continuing with that as the example, um, is that part of your motivation? Like you're like, I just want to mix it up. I would just want to like stir the pot. I want to put things together that traditionally are not popular to put together in this realm.
Hmm.
And uh, it's an interesting thing to do, like as a creative person, because that's actually creative. That's truly creative. So it satisfies that part of it. But I feel like in the long run, disruption, stirring the pot
Hmm.
is the most worthwhile thing to do.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, I've. I feel like maybe it's because of just being a creative person. I feel like I want to say inherently there's a bit of resistance to do the thing that just is what other folks want me to do either way. Uh, just kind of instinctually, if someone's like, I really like that thing, keep doing it. Part of me wants to be like, well, fuck that thing. I'm done with it. I want to do something
Right.
else. But it's that way with like any creative thing for me. When I get to a certain point with it, I have to find a way to cross into the next part of it to stay excited about it. And
100%.
if I can't overcome that, then I lose interest, and inevitably that thing will die down. But I think it's as weird as it is with my band currently. I'm doing. Oh, it's saying we have connection problems again.
I have the opposite. It says it's great here.
Yeah, it went away. Either way, there goes. Seems like one of your streams is having connection issues.
Yeah. Seems like they're always having connection issues.
Anyhow,
Welcome to Canada.
yeah. Yeah, I guess that my thing is like right now I'm doing a thing in the we're I don't know we are doing a thing in the band that I think is more what people get into bands to do, which is just kind of making records that are music you want to listen to or that I would want to hear someone do versus um,
100%.
some version of that or a regurgitation of a thing I like. Not to say that in the past we weren't bringing things from outside influences, but I there are lots of things musically that we all enjoy differently in the band, and me particularly, I listen to all kinds of stuff, but so even for like preparing for vocals on this record, like I'm not listening to anything that's heavy at all. I'm mostly listening to like electronic music and stuff, just try to get inspired by vocal melodies and stuff that don't have a place in what I'm doing. But I think that's the whole, for at least for me, the whole reason people start bands, at least, is to express themselves in a way, that they would want, you know, the music they want to create, the art they want to create, and over time, as you evolve in a project, become closer and closer to what your idea of what your project should be. And for me, at least with Close the Hatch, it's kind of actually genuinely at a place to where I feel like all the things that influences us as a whole are kind of present now, whereas beforehand it was like we're kind of been pigeonholed into this sludge doom world. I guess we've got to really nail that down for a while, and it didn't make a big difference other than like other sludge bands liked us. So, which is great, but
I think it's still relevant to the whole sludge doom thing. Like, you still have a portion of your aesthetic that speaks to that. Like, I think that's by design, but you're attempting to extend the potential for those genres or those aesthetics. Is that not?
Oh yeah,
somewhat accurate?
That's 100% accurate. Yeah, I mean, most
Right.
folks don't just listen to one thing and enjoy one thing. There are some people do, and that's cool. I've never been one of those people. I've always listened to everything, so I want to do as much as I can. But, no, it's just me.
Yeah. It's I think that's most of us. I would like to think that's most of us. You brought up the whole point of, listening to other things, and that you're really into electronic music. This is something that is also in my world. I listen to a lot of electronic artists that are very minimal, very musically complicated, or stylish, or whatever I think the attribute is in that regard. Obviously, people may disagree with whatever my assumption of that aesthetic is, but nonetheless, I'm drawn towards other things that are way outside of the music that I'm attempting to make. And I think that is actually a really informative and inspiring thing to do as an artist. Like, don't listen to the music in your genre. Stay away from it, and try to find angles and inspirations and different types of aesthetics in other things that maybe will help you differentiate yourself within that world. Even if you're like, I'm really into sludge doom, but I want to do my own version of sludge doom. Well, you're less likely to do that if you're paying attention only to that world of music, I think. And I really am with you on that whole listening outside.
I don't want to, especially in certain, like, particularly heavy genres, kind of all blur together a bit. But particularly when you're getting into the sludge stuff, there's there's Black Sabbath type of stuff, and then there's the other end of it, which is just super slow, heavy stuff.
Grief.
Yeah. So it's kind of the only way that you could just be another one of those bands, and that's fine. There's hundreds of them, and a lot of them are great, but at a certain point, there really isn't. And like, I don't know. As a guy who's been in this type of band for a while and played literally things called Sludge Fest several times, and like the Sludge Doomed and Stone Festival, I've played those a couple of times too. There'll be like 2-3 bands on those entire festivals that sound different, and those are always like, those are the bands,
the highlight bands.
Yeah, those are the bands that stick out, and it's usually not because they sound like all the rest of the sludge bands. They're doing something that's different, and sometimes the different thing is not necessarily my jam, but it's enough that I'm like, oh yeah, that band, you know, the one Doom band had a
Interesting.
trumpet player in it for no reason. But I would rather. That's kind of always been my thing, and I think that may just be like an instinctual, like fuck you thing. But like I've always wanted to, in every band I've been in, to on shows with multiple venues, multiple not venues, multiple artists, which happens a lot in the States. A lot of shows end up with way overbooked, but
Same here.
good. I don't know. I want to be the sore thumb. I want to stick out from those.
To not do the right thing.
Exactly.
The right thing.
I would rather leave with somebody, being curious and wondering who we are, or wanting to talk, or, get a record, or message us on the internet or something, or whatever. Or just in general leaving being like, what the fuck was that? I'd rather that happen than them be completely meh about the whole, like, just no interest at all. Disregard is not something I'm interested in.
Yeah. Forgettable.
Yeah. No one wants that.
Yeah. Amazing. We're going to get to a few comments. We're going to pick up three or four comments here. Topic today is doing the right thing, getting caught up in that whole idea. What is the right thing? And getting caught up in it and processing it, thinking about it. And for those of you joining us late, this here is Stephen Barton of Gear Stuff and Things. You'll probably start seeing a lot more of Stephen on the show. Nick is in Florida doing work because he needs to pay the bills.
Was that Nick that just chimed in on the band list thing here a minute ago, or was that you?
So any comments that are in here for band lists, I'm putting them in there.
Okay. Got it.
And seeing as Nick is out there paying the bills, we're going to try and pay the bills in here. If you're with us on Patreon, thank you very much. I don't have everything queued up because we had to kind of change the show a little bit today, but we still have to pay the bills here at Bandless, and Patreon is a way to do that. Thank you to everyone with us at Patreon. We're going to grab a few comments. We're going to start out with Rough Riffs, and he says, be 100% of 100% stoked for your thing. And yeah, having enthusiasm for your weirdness within a thing, I think is really important. Champion that thing, explore it. Be like, I'm interested in, Stephen and I, we have a shared interest in the sludge-doom thing. We approach it completely different. But we're both very interested in that thing, but we're both very interested in trying to interpret it from a completely different perspective. And I'm really excited about the way that I'm going about that. And I think, Stephen, you're also very excited about approaching it from a different point of view because it's interesting. And it's the thing that separates you from everybody else. Yeah. And so Rough Riffs, I think you're 100% on board with that. And 13 Flaws says, trying to fit a small niche can kill the creativity. Countless times I've written a riff and really liked it and then thought, it won't fit the style of the band. But this is an interesting one because in trying to fit, sometimes you discover that you don't fit, but maybe that's the thing. It's a weird perspective.
It's a weird thing to kind of connect the dots on. I've done stuff, at times and then been like, well, this won't fit and close the hatch or won't fit whatever, which is why I ended up doing the solo thing I was doing last year. And then the more electronic solo stuff I'm doing with the Ohio Faust project. Like, it's the same person creating it. So arguably it probably does work in that thing if you really wanted it to. It's just about like, do I want to throw caution to the wind, which I guess is the whole point of this episode, is that thing that you're like, oh, that doesn't work. Maybe that is the thing that works. And
yeah,
but that's why you know, at least my perspective, it would be like, even if you don't feel like it's right for that, record it, hang on to it, because there may come a time. The other side of that, sometimes you can create continuity within a project just by using something similar tonally. So if the riff itself doesn't seem like it fits with the other group of stuff,
right,
you can make it fit by adding things to the other things to sound a certain way, or
the aesthetics of it.
Yeah, you can pick a certain tone and stick with it throughout the entirety of a release, and that becomes the feel of the record, whether the riffs are, you know, the same or not. If the tone, I don't know, stays the same, it creates continuity and it creates a flow. So there are ways around that scenario. You just have to look for them.
Yeah, 100%. And for those of you who are, whoa, what's going on here with my intranet? I just want to drop in kind of a way for folks to kind of follow up with what you're talking about, Stephen. Mm-hmm. So gear, stuff and things, bam, here we go. For those of you who are being like, what's going on with this show? This is Stephen Barton once again. I'm sure most of you know him, but if you want to follow up with what Stephen's doing, what Stephen's talking about, his bands and all of that kind of stuff, I'm going to drop his YouTube channel in here, and you can find everything Stephen is doing through that. His band is called Close the Hatch, his primary band, but he does many things musical, and he does a variety of other things as well. What is it? Red Moth Recordings?
Red Moth Records, Red Moth LLC. I do a lot of commission artwork through that, and I used to release records for other bands through that, and then I started giving a lot of money to other people's projects and not getting anything out of it.
Great.
To add to the point of the 13 flaws question there, because I have things sitting here. So this guy I used on every song on the Close Hatch Records 6.
Right.
Which is an HM2, a modified HM2 clone.
Yeah.
But a lot of the riffs didn't necessarily work together, but anything that was distorted was this through a bassman on top of it. Even if we used other amps, we used a lot of amps on the record, but in some fashion or another, even the more drony melodic stuff that was on that record, this was on there somewhere. And that's what created the glue that made those songs that didn't seem to work together. So it's absolutely a thing you could do.
Yeah, 100%. Gonna grab this is gonna be the last one. We're gonna get to the next point, and then we're gonna get back to the comments after that. Mm-hmm. But just want to say hello to Baritone Cult and anyone else new joining us. But this one comes to us from Strung Out. I recently uploaded my first video on this channel, on his Strung Out channel. For those of you who don't know, the Strung Out channel is a new channel, and it is focused on strings. Strings are a very popular topic in the baritone world and otherwise. And so he recently uploaded his first video on the channel. He had higher expectations for it, but I think it's all right for a first video. Had to get it out as opposed to endlessly refining it. And this is huge. This is huge in terms of like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to win with every move that I do? And sometimes it takes a bunch of moves to win. Sometimes you still don't win after a bunch of moves, and it takes a bunch more. There's nothing to guarantee the win, but if the winning is kind of like in yourself, like in just doing the thing and making it happen, I think that's highly valuable. And yeah, the first video, the first single, the first EP, the first LP may not land. Stephen, have you had any experiences like this where the first thing out didn't really do it? I'm sure you have, like we all have.
Literally everything.
Everything.
Like everything I've ever done.
Yeah. Same.
Mostly misses.
Yeah. For folks who know about the Bunn and the Bunn channel, the Bunn YouTube channel, it seems like a semi-popular thing now. It's still a very small channel in the world of channels, to be real. But in its little space, I guess it's a big enough channel. You know, it took me 3 years to get to, I think like 2.5 years to get to 100 subscribers. And then in the third year, once I got past 100, I got up to, I don't know, 300 or 400 in that year. And then 4 years to get to 1,000, and then I also paid more attention to what I was doing and, you know, got to it. But yeah, my first video ever, I don't know, forever, it had like 20 views. And in terms of music, playing live, I've always had great luck with being a local band or being a regional band. Most of my bands have luckily done okay. And I've understood how to kind of go about that. And a lot of that had to do with like just doing it and getting out there like aggressively, vigorously, playing every friggin' show possible and practicing as much as possible and paying attention to like our composition as much as possible and maximizing everything, doing the most. And I've always done pretty good that way. With the internet, it's a little bit different. Like a lot of it has to do with doing all of those things and, you know, getting out there for a long time, or for, you know, getting a lot done, getting a lot out there. And that just takes time. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it takes months. It depends how much you can output and the quality of that output.
It's not all going to be lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. And some stuff is going to snooze. So do you have an example, Stephen, of a specific thing that was, you know, a lot of effort went in and a lot of hopes maybe surrounding it, and it was crickets?
The Ohio Foul stuff was that way. I mean, the first one I did in like 2007 or 8, and I had no expectations for it. And then the second one I started working on it like 2 years ago, and I was just kind of making a conscious effort to share it with people as I was working on things, and started doing live stream stuff on Facebook, just kind of me working on the material, and it was starting to get a bit of a buzz for a minute, and then I released it and no one gave a shit. Like, people were interested in watching me create. They were not interested in what I was creating.
They were interested in your story,
Yeah.
which is an interesting story.
Right.
And this is something that I have noticed in doing all of this creative stuff in the last couple of years, is that the story is more interesting than the result, generally speaking. Excuse me. For a lot of people. At some point, the result becomes more valuable at a certain point. But yeah, the story seems to be the most interesting thing, which is interesting because, like, I love documentaries and I love the how-to, and I love tutorials, and I love sort of how things come to be. I love watching, you know, when bands that are somewhat popular or popular to me, they might not be popular in the general public, but it's popular to me. And I love seeing like how they did it. And, which is interesting because I don't have any heroes. Like I don't have a single artist or band ever in history where I'm like, my favorite band or like my heroes. Like, I don't care about that at all. It is the most like non-existent thing in my life, but there are people who create a piece of work that I'm like, that piece of work it resonates with me in a way that like nothing else. And if there's an opportunity to see the sort of story on that piece of work, I'm just like, oh, all day. Like, I just want to know like what it was that kind of made it all come together.
I'm the same. I'm even interested in stuff I don't care about in normal life. Like I'll watch a documentary on anything really. Like I'm not into sporting events at all. I'm not into
Yeah.
It's not my thing. But I've watched a lot of documentaries on sports casters, sports stars, different the history of different sports. Same thing. Like I'm not interested in racing. I've watched documentaries on Ferrari and Ford and stuff. It's just interesting. It's not really. It's exactly what you're saying. Sometimes the story is more interesting than the actual result.
Yeah. However, there are certain results that I am particularly interested in. And if there's a story that parallels it, even better.
Yep.
Amazing. We're going to move along here to point 2 for those of you who are just joining and don't know what's going on. Nick Hill is away at work in Florida. The
land where COVID doesn't exist.
No, there's no COVID there. It's warm and there's alligators and oranges. It's great.
It's all alligators and oranges and theme parks.
Yeah. Very precarious riding high. Florida high. But Nick Hill is away at work. This here is Stephen Barton. And, if you'd like to know more about Stephen Barton, you will probably see more of him on the Bandlist channel. But this is his YouTube channel. He is a YouTuber talking a lot about gear stuff and things. A lot of that gear is baritone guitars and a lot of other stuff and things. And he is a member of Close the Hatch, principal member of Close the Hatch, Doom Sludge. Amazing music. I don't have the link ready, but you can find it through his YouTube channel. And
just closethehatch.com will get you to all of our records.
Close the Hatch. Here we go. I'm gonna type it out. CLOSETHEHATCH.com. I'm gonna put a www there. That was hard to say. www.
It's always tricky.
Dot close it, because I feel like if that's not there, it won't link. There we go. Looks like it's linking.
There you are.
All right. Yeah. But this is Stephen Barton. This is the things he does. This is why he has some perspective on these topics. If you're like, who is this guy? Well, he's Stephen Barton.
I appreciate your patience, folks who don't know or care.
Oh, you know now. You know now. Point 2, timing and context. In terms of the right thing, being caught up in this whole idea of the right thing. What is the right thing? The right thing is timing and context. And this is probably the reason you can't put your finger on the right thing exactly. Why you can't predict what the future right thing is timing and context, the right time and the right variable of things. And the right thing is different at every level of success. So if you're at the very beginning and you're like, oh, I'm looking at, let's say, Periphery or Close the Hatch or the Bunn or anyone, and you've yet to get anything out ever, and you're looking at somebody else who has done a few things, not even a ton of things. They're not even huge on the scale of hugeness. Is that a term? It is now. But if you're looking at those things and you're like, I'm going to do what that person's doing, who has done a few things, not even a ton. And the point in this, or the point of this point is that it may not be relevant. It may not relate to where you're at. So timing and context. The context of what you're doing compared to somebody else and attempting to emulate someone else may not be the right choice if you're looking for the right thing to do. And this is very important. And I've definitely got tripped up in this. Stephen, have you ever got tripped up in this idea, like studying others and being like, I'm going to do that. And then it's like super crickets. And you're like, only after the fact, you're like, oh, I get why.
Yeah, I think for the most part, something being disingenuous, even if it's passively so,
Yep.
translates as such to people who would be seeking it.
Oh, profound.
I mean, you can tell if someone's like, oh, they heard a record and did that thing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I'm sure you do. Remember after new metal when there was the American metal resurgence and then the European metal resurgence, and then it was like, oh, I can't tell which of these bands is which because they all sound the same.
Darkest Hour.
Yeah. God forbid. They all have certain things about them that are somewhat different and unique, and that's not. I'm not.
Well, because it was an interpretation of something else, and they just kind of got it wrong, but they were really trying to just be that.
Yeah.
And you could tell.
Yeah. Well, that's why, a lot of that stuff, and I don't know. It's not my wheelhouse, so I don't know if any of those bands are still around, but I'm sure a lot of them still are. But
yeah. And I'm not, just for the record, we're not beating up on any of these bands. They're just like good examples, and they could be good bands, like in terms of they're tight, they're in tune, they have like, well-crafted material, all that kind of stuff. But
I've seen a handful of them live. They're great bands. It's just, I don't know. Not everyone can reinvent the wheel. Otherwise, it's not a thing, honestly.
No. Yeah.
But I think you can tell when the intention is pure. And the bands that I think, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm sure there are bands that were created. Obviously, there are bands and artists created purely for financial gain.
Yeah.
And it's irrelevant whether they're good or sound like another thing.
They're entertainers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole commerce side of it, which is a whole other thing. But I think the bands that tend to be a little more transparent or actually truly doing a thing that seems genuine or is genuine to them seem to be the ones that stay.
Yeah.
Whereas
Always.
The others fall off. And I mean, using them as a silly example, there's Corn. Corn's still a thing. They're huge.
Yeah.
And
even more so in that world is the Deftones. The Deftones have transcended that thing.
No, from day one. Like, as soon
they were
as they could get away from it,
completely unique. Yeah.
They're a huge thing for me. I love the Deftones. And so it's of the bands of that era, they're the only one I still give a shit about, truthfully.
There's Korn is an interesting example for me because Korn is a band that I never liked, but that I thought was artistically very important. And I still think that, at least in their, I don't know what they're doing now, but I think initially, especially on the self-titled record, that was an incredibly disruptive approach to writing and use like the tonality of it. They were using a lot of this diminished kind of stuff, a lot of tritones and all this. It was like chainsaws on the back of the neck, and it should never have become top 40. Like there was nothing in it that you're like, this is definitely going to be huge, but it went massive, way more massive than anybody could have ever predicted. And when I first heard it, before they even got massive, I was like, this is interesting to me. There's things about it that I was not interested in, but generally in the basic artistic, anatomy of it, I guess it was interesting, and my ears went up, and I was like, "Whoa, who is this band?"
Like, prior to that, it was we're coming out of the hair metal era into
Yeah,
grunge.
yeah,
And honestly, grunge kind of had a lot of stuff going on. It wasn't all kind of because I think there's worlds apart from Nirvana to Alice in Chains. Like they don't sound
yeah. They
like
don't
bands.
even relate to
Yeah.
me.
They were, somewhat in the same general area, but
Yeah,
not similar. But
geographically.
yes, not similar bands. For that matter, you know, the Pixies, Mudhoney, those bands don't sound like none of those bands sound similar.
No,
But because that was such a thing, the next thing coming off of that had to be that much more different.
right.
And Korn ended up being that thing.
Yeah,
And it was kind of the antithesis of that. Like, if grunge was the answer to hair metal, Korn and the new metal movement was the answer to grunge.
timing and context.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to make my point, but I guess I did.
100%. But yeah, I think in the end, like kind of knowing what you have, like being in tune with what you're doing, not knowing what you have in relationship to other people, because you will never know that. There are people that think that foreign sounds like Dillinger Escape Plan, Meshuggah, and Metallica, and they love it. They're like, man, you do like such a good Metallica, or you do such an amazing Meshuggah, or you do an incredible Dillinger Escape Plan. I'm like, I don't see any of that in there, but it's not up to me to decide what you take away from it. And if it connects with you for some reason that I will never understand, that's none of my business. But you're never going to be able to deliver a context at a particular time if you do nothing. So even if your idea is weird, you should, get it out there and kind of muse on it and develop it and try to connect with people, try to pay attention to who you're connecting with. And maybe you like the people your material is connecting with, or maybe you don't. I don't know. That's a whole different conversation. But context and timing, it's a huge thing. Do you find, Stephen, at any point in time that you became kind of aware of any of those things, like how your stuff connected and why it was connecting, and it maybe it made sense, or maybe it didn't make sense, and you were like,
Yeah, I can actually kind of pinpoint it, which is weird.
that's very cool, though.
With Close the Hatch, it's funny. I was in the previous band I was into them, which was more of a radio rock band, which
Right.
I was also fronting.
With your angelic voice.
Yeah, it was much more. I guess I'm kind of going the other way now. Like I was only primarily singing and occasional screaming in that because it was much more radio rock oriented.
Right.
Whereas I made a pretty determined point to do the opposite of that for the first few years of Close the Hatch. But I've started to go back into singing. But again, I'm approaching it from a perspective that's not
Totally different.
what's there.
Yeah.
At least trying to. But yeah, I told a friend of mine, Josh Goodlow, which I don't think he's on the stream, but should he ever see it, he will confirm that towards the end of that previous band, that I thought I was just going to try to do what I actually want to do versus what's working. Because that other band was actually at a point where like things were taking off, and it became an existential battle for me because the music we were doing, I had no connection to.
Yeah. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life,
Right.
no matter how good it works.
Right. And it was like, more than half of the band of the 4 and 5 people that were rotating at the time were like, let's, these things are lining up. Let's go do that thing. And it was like, okay, let's go play a show with, ex B C list band that was a thing 5 years ago and tour with them, and it just didn't do anything for me, and it felt disingenuous. And so eventually, I just quit my own band and pissed off a lot of people, because it wasn't the right thing for me. I was unhappy, which, yeah. Anyways, I remember telling him, like my buddy Josh, I told him, I think I'm gonna do something I actually want to do my own thing. And then a few years later, he was at one of our shows and made it a point to tell me, he's like, you told me you were going to do your own thing and not give a shit whether anyone else liked it or not. And he's like, but you're doing it and people like it.
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, I guess I did that. So.
Yeah. You don't get to choose it, but it's never going to line up if you don't choose it. Like if you don't choose to go for it.
You have to take risks. With everything.
You don't know what's going to be the right thing, really. It just shows itself. We're going to grab a few comments. Is there anything you want to cap off on there, Stephen?
No.
Okay.
There were a lot of comments. I saw. I mean, there's a lot
of good ones.
Yeah, I saw Baritone Cult had a lengthy one there a moment ago. Okay,
we're going to get to that. We're going to start with a development of a void. Oh, bam. Got to click once, not twice. And development of a void says, the same way we shouldn't listen to the genre we are making to get creative, we shouldn't watch videos of similar content we are creating. Does this make sense? And I'm sure you have a lot to say about this, Stephen, but for me, that is number one. I watch my friends, so Stephen Barton, Nick Hill, Synth Chris, Baritone Cult. I watch the people who are immediately in my periphery, who are immediately important to me. But in terms of guitar channels and whatnot, I do not watch any of them. I watch things completely not related to the guitar space. For two reasons. A, for my personal education, like I like physics. So I watch things on physics, like quantum physics, typically like advanced theoretical physics and the physics of the very small, and also the astronomical stuff, astrophysics. Interested in that stuff. So I watch that stuff. And in a way, like that is informative to foreigns. Part of the thing of foreigns is like, the cross section of the very big and the very small, very short songs with a lot of granular sort of spaces and stops and gaps and all these things, but the tonality seeks to be very large. So in a way, like the physics, I kind of parlay that down creatively in that way. But I seek to enjoy things on the video in this regard anyway, in the video realm, that are separate of my personal YouTube interests and my personal video interests. So I watch a lot on cinematography and all that. Stephen, do you have anything specific that is like you've already covered with the electronic music, and that you actually participate in electronic music, but any other examples in that realm?
I also watch people that are kind of part of this community. I watch Baritone Called. I watch you and Nick, Synth Chris. I check out what you guys are doing, Gary, Heibner. And for the most part, outside of that, like if there's something specific, like a specific piece of gear, I'll look it up.
Yep.
And I also, if I'm covering something that a bunch of people have covered, or I have a particular piece of gear and maybe I want to do a video on it or something,
right,
I do look that up to see what people have done, and if there's...
So you don't just redundantly cover the exact same shit?
Because if something exists, and I like Helix is one of those things, is kind of the gift that keeps on giving, because there are hundreds and thousands of videos on it, but for some reason people are still interested in it, which is great. Yep. And I think there's some creative aspects to creating and carving out a tone in there.
Oh yeah,
Um,
100%. It's the beauty of
but
the Helix.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. But at times I'll look and be like, oh, there's, you know, I don't know. Let's say like Andy with Pro Guitar Shop or Reverb has covered something on a pedal. I don't. He's gonna get like 4 million views tomorrow. Why do I need to do it?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be one of them. So there's that.
Yeah.
And
Well, sometimes people, something that you have done in terms of that is that you have covered certain pedals from the point of view of using it with a specific instrument. In this case, would be a baritone guitar,
mhm,
and maybe within a different context. So we've talked about before, like the whole blues rock phenomenon, which is, plagues a lot of, doesn't plague, but like it is very common with a lot of the gear reviews to be, uh, the example is through this platform of blues rock. And it's really frustrating to a lot of people. It's really frustrating to me. I think it's really frustrating to you, but it's really frustrating to me. I'm like, I already know that if I play a few, blues rock notes or whatever on almost any gear in almost any setting, it's going to just sound like blues rock, and it's going to sound a little more hairy or a little less hairy.
yeah,
Um, and I know that the context of which I use equipment, uh, tons of things don't work. Like most things don't work
yeah,
at all. It needs to be really granular, really specific. And there's very little sources for me to find that out. So I appreciate when you kind of cover things in the way that you do that maybe have been covered a million times by blues rockers and rock and rollers and heavy metalers that are playing, power chords and things that just kind of always work, that aren't as granular, or
yeah.
that don't require as granular of a focus. Is that on your mind when you're looking at things?
It is. A part of the whole reason I even started the channel from the baritone perspective of things. I kind of come and go from that world on the channel anymore, but just because I like all kinds of stuff, so it's fun to mess with other things.
Yeah.
But I got tired of seeing the blues rock reviews. Like everything is, if it's an overdrive, okay, he's gonna do what they do with every tube screamer. Bleh.
Yeah.
Uh, and at the same time, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna watch a guy demo this pickup or this amp, and then it was like, floored high gain stuff. At a certain point, this is just my opinion, and I love high gain stuff. I love heavy stuff, and we have a whole basement full of amps and
Yeah.
stuff. But high gain stuff at a certain point, particularly when we were talking about metal stuff, if it's not demoed in a particular way, you're not showing off the difference. Because it's just high gain, and they all have different. I've done a video on this actually where I compared like 10, I think it was 6 high gain amps to each other, and they all have little differences, but they're all completely acceptable. If you were just to be like, this chug,
Yep.
which is kind of what Ola does, but in a much more simple
Yeah.
term, like you're not getting anything out of watching this other than it's just a guy playing a riff. We know that amp gets heavy. What else does the amp do? What does it do with a Telecaster playing through a rectifier? Like, those things are more interesting to me than. I haven't done that video, of course, but like, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's more interesting to see it handled in a way that's not shrill and predictable.
Yeah. I did a video on 8 guitars used through the same high gain kind of patch. And
Hmm.
my high gain patches are actually not very high gain. They're a pushed gain
Yeah,
kind of sound. It doesn't really matter, but you know, something that I'm sure you get a lot is like, what guitar is the best guitar and what is the best configuration, all these sorts of things. And my answer typically is like the thing that you like the most. Um, and that could be just aesthetics. You're like, I like the way his guitar looks. Great, use that guitar. Uh,
it's like Stephen Carpenter literally has. Sorry, I had fuzz
yeah.
on me. Stephen Carpenter literally has all those signature series ESPs he has, which are awesome guitars.
Yeah.
The only reason they had the EMGs
Middle
in them
pickup.
he just liked them aesthetically. the pickup doesn't get used. He only uses the bridge pickup.
Yeah.
But he likes the way it looks, so he has, buildings and buildings full of these $4,000 guitars that really are purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a little bit of each, right? I mean, sometimes it's just whatever you like, but it's the same thing like with Nick was talking about on the last thing. Sometimes for photography, the best camera you have is the one that's with you. And the same thing can be said for guitar.
Yeah.
Whatever you have, if it
100%.
works and you're happy with it.
It all works.
Yeah.
It's the same as your demo with the high gain amps. I used a bunch of guitars with the same high gain patch. I'm like, they all work. And people got real meta about it. But I'm like, I can make a record with this exact combination of things, and it would be perfectly acceptable. Would it be absolutely ideal for what I'm going for? No. I'm very granular, but it would work.
That was the whole point I was trying to make with my video on that, which I don't know. Maybe my thumbnail was of Flavor Flav, so I don't know that helped my plays. But
it's fine
because it was called High Gain Hype, and Flavor Flav is a hype man.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. There's look, I've got all this crap back here. They all kind of do the same thing, different tunings, different pickups. But ultimately, any one of them would work just fine if it was the only one I had. And I'm realistic about that. I'm fortunate to have them. And, a good portion of them are my wives as well. So, but it's like, I don't know. Like, just being honest, like, just look at, like, these first three. Those are they all have humbuckers in them, and they're all tuned to drop A. Any of them would work. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I could throw the other two away. And behind that, there's two that are still baritones that would work in the same reason.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. I mean, it's cool if you got stuff. I'm, guilty of gear acquisition, but it doesn't matter that much. If it works for you and you're happy, who cares?
Yeah. We're going to grab one more. Stephen, I'm going to let you lead this one off. I got to de-liquid deathify.
Well, that'd be cool because when you get back, I'm going to do this.
You're going to do it. Yeah. It is Apoplexia, and this is a good one.
I listen to a lot of metal, but also different music, and I feel the most inspired I have been in a long time, even though I still at playing. I'm not sure what the still meant. But yeah, I think the gist of it is just listening to different stuff, taking inspiration from different things is good. Also, you might hear something or do something that doesn't necessarily fit the genre you're doing, and it might become its own thing for you. I personally, I gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. Personally speaking, I play in a couple of weird open tunings that are basically country tunings, but I use them on baritone. And at first it seems silly, but it kind of over time just kind of became my thing and allows me to do some weird chord stuff that is harder to do on a more standard tuned guitar. Drum and bass, yeah, awesome. Yeah, you should always, try to experiment with stuff that take inspiration from things that, I saw someone mention the Frank Zappa thing of forcing yourself to be inspired by things you don't like.
Yeah.
Which is a good way to look at it. But also you can like things that have no, assumed correlation to what you're creating. It doesn't. Influence is all silly anyway, because if I only listen to one thing and then I write a record and I think to me that sounds like that thing, like Bunn was saying earlier, someone's gonna be like, well, it sounds like Metallica, Meshuggah, or whatever. Like, okay. I have people ask me all the time if I listen to Pink Floyd. I fucking hate Pink Floyd. But because my band has, nothing against them. And obviously they're a huge deal, but just never did anything for me.
Yeah, doesn't click.
I would get sick of hearing the same 5 songs on classic rock radio all my life. But either way, because my band has elements of ambient stuff in it occasionally, people are like, you must really love Pink Floyd. I'm like, just because I have a delay pedal doesn't mean I hang out with the Edge. Like, I don't understand.
Oh, you gonna run off there, Stephen?
Yeah,
You
I
go
do
do-
need to make pee.
Yeah, go do the yellow. Keep it mellow, do the yellow. But yeah, you know, listening within your space is something that I think especially when you find, you know, a piece of music with it. So recently I found a band called Yashura on Bandcamp, and they're from Florida. They do something not that different than Swarm of the Lotus, or even maybe early Mastodon, like Remission era Mastodon. Not quite like that, but you know, parallels for sure. But anyhow, I found this band, and it's really easy to kind of like, I like it, and to listen to it, and for it to start to sort of filter in and inspire what I'm doing. And I find whenever that happens, it's too similar, and you end up in this situation of like, just, you know, paralleling, sounding a lot like the thing you're listening to. The easiest way to go about that in a way that you don't sound like it, and it is truly just an inspiration, is to listen to something completely different than what you actually make. So there's a artist called Lorne, electronic artist, and I listen to that a lot. There's a bunch like Dirty Inputs, Lorne, you know, Apoplexia, actually. Let's be real. Because I have that whole discography. And it's drum and bass kind of stuff, but a lot of electronic music. That's the kind of world that I'm in. Steven's also in that world. But yeah, listening outside of the thing that you're trying to make can be very helpful. But we're going to go back to the topic. This is going to be the final point on the topic. And then we're going to just hang out in the the comments rather, for the remainder of the show. For those of you who do not know what's going on, Nick Hill is in Florida doing work because he works. He's a working man. And in his place, or not even in his place, he's got his own place. We got Stephen Barton from Gear Stuff and Things YouTube channel, Close the Hatch band, and many other things. What's the name of the podcast, Stephen?
That's sexy, but with a question mark.
Yeah, that's apostrophe.
Yes.
Like, that's sexy. I'm subscribed to it on Google Podcasts, but yeah, I just go to the thing and that's it.
It's it's something. We basically
It's funny.
we have a collection of vintage erotica stories, like just stories, not pornography. Although there is some pornography in it, but and basically we just go through these things from the 70s and early 80s, and we read these submissions to, you know, erotica magazines, and just laugh at them because they're all preposterous. It's not safe for work, for sure. But
no.
And it's offensive if you're someone who is easily offended, but we don't offend easily. So, and I don't imagine most of the folks here do. But yeah, it's worth checking out if you just want to hear us laugh at stupid stuff.
It's pretty funny. Have you ever, question for you, sorry, not related to the Bandos thing, but related to your That Sexy podcast. Have you ever had something like a reader read the stories? So I did. I was like, I was trying to give an example to how a reader worked to somebody else. and I used a reader. So for those of you who don't know, the Microsoft Edge browser, and maybe others can, but that browser specifically will read the screen to you. And all you have to do is just highlight what you want it to read and it will read it, or it will just read the whole thing if you don't highlight anything. So I was trying to give this example. I'm like, yeah, this browser is awesome. It will read to you. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get like some of Stephen Barton's podcast type of material for this thing to read to give the example. So I found some erotica stories and just got the browser to read it in its robo voice. And it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do is to make robots say sexual things.
Say sexy things that are not very sexy. Not very sexy at all.
No, the one we just finished was one of the more fucked up ones we've ever done. A lot of it, like, we end up, I mean, there's a disclaimer at the beginning of it, but sometimes the stories, we have to, like, reiterate, like, we are not okay with these things. Like,
yeah. This podcast, this not about being okay with it. It's just about how effed it is, or how funny it is.
The preposterous nature of the things people thought it was appropriate to send in for other people to read, thinking they were sexy when they're generally the opposite. It's rough. It's rough, but that's the whole point of the podcast, is that the idea that someone was like, I'm going to write them a letter. That's they need to, like, if there's one thing the world
needs to know.
Yeah, if there's one thing the world doesn't need to know about anyone else, is it's what makes them come. We don't need to know that.
Right. Yeah. Not okay.
Nobody needs to know that. But for whatever reason, everyone thinks they need to tell.
Yeah. It's like, I never want to know about something that seems to be the case more with like gals and gal pals, is they're more okay with that stuff. But like me and my guy pals, like, I don't want to tell them what I'm doing in my sexy life. And I don't want to know about their sexy life, like, at all. I don't want to think about them and all of that. But anyhow.
Thing. Yeah. Anyways, yes, we're getting off topic.
We're off topic, but it's all in good fun. So this here is Stephen Barton, and he does Gear Stuff and Things YouTube channel. And that link is in the comments here, as well as he is the main guy in Close the Hatch, although it is very much a team effort. It is a team. And Close the Hatch, I had it in here earlier. Some of you know it and love it, and that's fantastic. It is a fantastic musical project, sludge-doom and far beyond, as well as
all the kind words folks are saying in the comments. Thank you. That's very nice.
Yeah, the people loving. Oh, Apoplexia likes the Lorne as well. He loves I noticed this. He loves the Close the Hatch, and he also loves the Lorne. Apoplexia, we're going to have good hangs once COVID lifts, because he's in Montreal. He's in Canada as well.
Ooh,
but that's his YouTube channel. Close the Hatch is his band, and he also does a podcast with his partner called That Sea. And I don't link for that right now. I don't know if this is the place, but you can search it. I'm going to put that's sexy podcast. I'm really good at typing, by the way. Sweet. I'm like, if you need to hire someone to type for you, I'm the best typer ever, because it took me only that long to type that. Anyhow, last point of the topic, and then we're going to just hang out in the topic, or in the, I keep saying that, just hang out in the comments. And the last point is practicality, pointlessness, fearlessness, and speed. I don't know what's going on with my mind. It's very interesting. It's a garden. But practicality, fearlessness, and speed. What's going on here with the whole topic? If you're just joining us, the topic today is the right thing. It's like, what is the right thing to do as an artist? I want to go out there and do this thing, whether it's by yourself or with a band. It's much more convoluted of a process with a band, but as a solo artist, you're like, when you don't have the distraction of a bunch of people to deal with, you're like, what the heck do I do? And what is the right thing to do? What is my track the right track? Is my mix the right mix, etc.? Well, this final point kind of wraps it all up. And I think the answer to it, it's, kind of an open-ended sort of thing, but more of a methodology of practicality, fearlessness, and speed. Practicality in that, just like, what is the thing that I can do right now that is in my reach, that is the best thing I can do? And then the fearlessness part is maybe, I'm not going to think about it too much. I'm not going to get caught up in this imposter syndrome or in this, like, am I doing good or not? Maybe be self-critical, like, can I do a little bit better, but not get caught up in that perfection trap. Be fearless, just kind of like get it done, get it out, and speed. So get it out and follow it up. That's where the speed part, I think, is really important. And something that I noticed, Stephen, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So I live in Canada. You live in Canada currently as well. You do double duty, Canada and the United States. But I've toured Canada more than I've toured the United States. And one of the things about touring Canada is it's a process and it's a money loser compared to the United States. And because especially if you go west, the drives are really long, the stops are very few. And let's say you do that tour and it does well. Well, the thing you want to think about right away is following it up. How do you follow it up? Now you can leverage something like the internet to follow it up and keep up with it. And while you're touring, try and put something into place where people can jump on via the internet so that you can keep up with it. But the ultimate thing, if a tour does well, is you kind of want to follow that tour up, especially in the key markets where you did well. In the United States, this is a lot easier. So if you do a Midwest tour, and, say out of 30 dates or 20 dates, doesn't matter. Out of 20 or 30 dates, there are 10 or 15 places that are key, that go really well. Well, you can just follow up on those 15, 10 or 15 places within the next 2 to 3 months. You can book them again and go back. And that is a really important thing to consider, the speed at which you address your success. Also, the speed in which you address your failure. So in the case of being a solo creator and trying something and it doesn't work, it doesn't matter that it doesn't work because you're the whole show. So you just do another thing right away and you pivot and maybe you try something else, or maybe you try the same thing from a different point of view. So Stephen, in terms of the show thing, because you live in the States, is that something that you've ever had in practice? Have you been that methodical about it? And as a solo creator, what do you have to say about failing fast?
Okay. For shows, yeah, that's definitely a thing. But we have kind of got to think we'll book a bunch of shows, and just like you were saying, you figure out the places that work, and then the next time going into it, I don't even book the places that didn't do well the last time. I'll only focus on the ones that did okay, and then new destinations that may lead to more failure or more potential. That becomes 50-50 at that point. But yeah, it's definitely something that I've dealt with and used as a planning method.
Yeah. And failing quickly as a solo creator, it's difficult to fail quickly as a group because it's just more bureaucracy.
Yeah. I think I'm at a point where I'm just Yeah, you're a little choppy, Bun. Um, you've been frozen in the same position for a few minutes. Um, yeah, I don't know. For solo stuff, solo creation or even just YouTube here, I just assume, and I go into it assuming that hopefully it gets better every time. But my thing is just on to the next. Like I try not to dwell.
On the
Just
last thing.
yeah, like 'cause it's done now. There's nothing
Yeah.
I can delete it, but that doesn't really help me either. So just keep doing it, throwing things out there. Some things do better than others, but that's that way with everything. That's not isolated to this world.
Yeah.
If you open up two pizza places, one might be doing better than the other. It's just
Yeah. And yeah, there's nothing to guarantee. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the pizza itself and everything to do with how the personalities are at the counter or on the phone. It's like I like going there because those people are nice. The pizza's no shit, but
yeah,
whatever. Like I love hanging out with those people for the second that I'm there.
yeah. The hang's cooler. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's usually the important part about most stuff.
A lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that I don't know. Success is subjective. There's obvious successes, but like I don't know. I feel like if 10 more people watch the next thing you do or listen to the next thing you do, then that's 10 more people than the previous time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The biggest gap is between 0 and 1. And once you get to 1, like if you can just double every time, like exponentially, that's unlikely. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it happens, rather. It doesn't work. But like, if you can close that first gap from 0 to 1, you've done an amazing thing. And then if you can double 1 to 2, that's 100% growth.
Yeah.
And you just taking that idea and like keep going with it is, that's my whole thing, in terms of listeners or viewers or whatever. I don't know how it is for you. I know that you're like by nature, like a more quiet kind of introspective person. I'm also introspective, but like, I've become in the later part of my life a lot louder of a person, a lot more sort of socially fearless, I suppose. That is not everyone. That is not everyone's thing, and that can be kind of helpful as well as maybe a downside. It depends on the context of the situation, but definitely. Being social by nature to some extent, and also so for me, I had more experience being social, and I valued social the more I had more experience with it, if that makes any more sense, because I'm late to it. When I was young, I was much more quiet and much more fearful of social and all that kind of stuff. And it's at a very later point in my life that I got more social, but I put a great deal of value on it. And I think that has a huge part to play in terms of everything connecting. I'm interested in meeting people. I'm interested in knowing people, especially people like me who are interested in things like I'm interested in. So if they like my music or my videos or whatever, it's like, oh, well, that's a clear signifier. Generally, I'm like, oh, we can talk about the same things and we can be friends, essentially. So because that's really important to me, I feel like it has a part to play in all of those things connecting. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's important to me, but like there's a value to it to me that is just naturally there. And maybe some people don't. Maybe it's just numbers to them. I'm not sure. And maybe some people are uncomfortable with all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few friends that I have guys that I grew up with that are musicians, and some friends of mine that own a studio. And recently I was there, and he's like, "I think that's cool that you're doing that. I don't, I'm not comfortable enough to do that." I'm like, "We still deal with strangers all the time, recording them. It's really
Yeah.
good." And a lot of it is like you by yourself. So,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. I'm not same kind of position really. I really wasn't as social until I got a little older.
Right.
Um, and I was pretty introverted, for a lack of a better term, but it's the accurate term.
Yep.
And that kind of creative person, very protective over the things I'm doing and not really interested in the external stuff. I was bad. Being in the more rock and roll band I was in for a while actually helped with that a lot, because I would get in situations to where I'd have to talk in between songs and stuff on stage, or like play. We were playing a place in Indiana called Drifties, which I don't know if it's still there or not.
Right.
And they made me tell the drink specials in between songs.
Ooh, tasty.
And I just remember being like, "This is why no one should be a front man."
Yeah. Or this is why this club should never book a band.
Right. And it was just kind of like, you kind of have to get used to it. And then I worked in sales for a few years.
Oh, wow.
That kind of.
I don't see that.
I hated it, but I'm good at faking it when I need to.
Right.
Well, especially when my livelihood's at stake. I'm going to try to put food on the table. But, yeah, I think that helped. That, and just kind of being around people that are more social than me, and realizing that, like, they seem to be getting along a little less struggle oriented than I am.
It really helps. My life totally changed when I kind of figured it out. My situation was a little bit different, but
I'm still awkward as fuck. So like, that's my biggest problem, is like, I'm happy to talk to anyone, but the beginning of that conversation and the end of it are not going to go smoothly.
I find the connectors, like finding out a place to connect, and also from let's say the uncomfortable perspective, it's like, well, there's very little that I care about a great deal to connect on. Trying to figure that out, trying to find simple things to be thankful to connect on. And not every conversation needs to lead to best friends. It's fine. But I don't know. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, connecting. Yeah. Connecting is a huge part of, making it all work better and in a meaningful way, where you don't feel like you're selling. Because early on in a musical, especially musical context, like I release a single and you're not connected with anyone, let's say. You have no audience whatsoever of any nature. Your whole goal is to get some ears on it. And that's a difficult thing to navigate. But it's a lot easier if you're kind of just in this sort of like social sharing kind of environment. And also, if it's a social sharing environment where you're all interested in similar things, and the thing that you're sharing is relevant to all of those things that you're all interested in to begin with, it's just a more natural, organic thing. And from there, things proliferate. I just sort of like burp talked there. I don't know if you heard that.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a talent. But yeah, I think to cap this last point off is, not to bother with the things that are not working. Just try the next thing. If something's not working, something that a lot of people get caught up in is they just do the same not working thing over and over and over and over and over. And that is, the definition of crazy if I ever heard it.
You gotta learn to walk away.
Yeah, walk away from the things that are not working and try and approach things from a different point of view, a different angle, a different mindset. And a lot of times our preconceived notions of like the things that we dislike are not necessarily accurate. Take a look at those things. It's like, how am I looking at whatever? Could be the social aspect of things, the marketing aspect of things, the business aspect of things, the musical aspect of things, etc. Every single angle. What part of it are you looking at things negatively? And maybe what is the alternatives? Are you aware of how you're looking at it? And if that's even relevant? That's always an interesting thing. That's been a very revealing thing in my own life. But we're going to grab some comments here and take it out to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. Central Time. And we got about 15 minutes to do so. And in the very end here, we just want to thank everyone with us over at Patreon. I don't have the cards and the visuals for it today because there's only two of us. But if you're with us at Patreon, thank you very much. It helps make all of this happen. If you're wondering where Nick Hill is, he's at work in Florida, being a videographer, cinematographer, and he'll be with us next week. But if you'd like to help all of this along, Bandless Patreon is a great place to do it. The fella on your right is Stephen Barton of Gear, Stuff, and Things. And you'll probably be seeing a lot more of Stephen Barton, life permitting, on this channel. Thank you very much for hanging with us today, Stephen Barton. It was a short notice.
Oh, I appreciate it.
But your perspective has been golden. I've dropped Stephen's YouTube channel link down below in the comments. He does a lot of things about gear, stuff, and things, and a lot of the gear has a baritone slant to it, but far beyond. And he also approaches like artist topics like we're talking about today, perspectives and otherwise. We're going to get into some comments. Thanks to everyone with us here. I see a few people that I have not said hello to. Eccentrics, hello, how are you? Hope you are well. Synth Chris, hope you're well. We're going to grab Synth Chris's comment here. It's a good one. People get so nitpicky with a lot of gear. And Synth Chris, when I first found him, he was just doing it very kind of like with whatever he had available to him, and he was doing great things. He had his SoundCloud, and he's at the time he was just a kid, like pre-college, like a teenager in high school for real, and didn't have very much gear, but had an incredible amount of output. So props to you, Synth Chris, for being a kind of early adopter, and just go for it. But I don't know much about physical gear, he says. But with pretty much every amp sim, if you spend enough time, you can probably squeeze out a decent tone at worst.
Agreed.
Yeah. And this is super important to sort of gassers and whatnot. And, I've chased the gear. Stephen, you've chased the gear. No, you've never chased the gear. Don't you dare chase that gear.
It's funny,
but
I did, but I still end up going for like the same 2 or 3 things all the time.
Yeah, I like 2 amps in my whole life: 5150 and dual rectifier. I've played other amps that were amazing, lots and lots, but I don't know. I just keep going back to those, and it's fine. I don't even care. But yeah, chasing the gear is like the interesting equation of chasing the gear is if you took all the time that you spent oogling and ogling over the gear and chasing it and waiting and all this kind of stuff, and you just put it into using some gear,
Yeah.
the results, they stack up immediately. Just use what you got and see how far you can push it. Have you ever in your life kind of had been privy to a moment where you have done that, and what was the results? Or maybe you knew someone who did that. They're like, I got nothing, but I'm just going to go for it. I feel like that's sort of your beginnings.
Yeah. I mean, I've always kind of been that way. I mean, I collect gear and stuff, obviously.
Yeah, because you can, but like you
Yeah.
don't need to do what you do.
No, not at all. And I mean, kind of going the other way with it now. Like I'm mostly building things these days if I'm doing anything with guitars.
You're the build master.
Lately, that's my jam. But
Yeah.
I use those guitars more because I'm more attached to them. But I guess instead of me spending that time like, well, what's the perfect prefabricated instrument I can buy? I'm like, well, what can I do to make the thing that I don't have, or something that I would really like to have that I can't afford, which is still gear acquisition, but at least there's some creative aspect in that I'm having to like pick out bodies and sand things and wire. Like there's a creative thing happening there. It's just so, and it's I don't know, of the guitars I've built, those are the ones I go to. I mean, I have some nice stuff, but the ones that I've spent time building and putting together with my own hands, I have a bigger appreciation for it, and I've a more of a connection to them. So but yeah, I've been in periods of time where I've like, especially traveling, I'll take one guitar with me when I go to the States, and that guitar that's with me ends up being what I use on any videos or whatever that I'm working on. And I basically take a backpack with a Helix and one guitar with me in general anymore.
Amazing.
And it's enough for me to do anything I would need to do. And I've done videos like reviewing pedals. Recently, I did one on Christmas. I reviewed a Delamo overdrive pedal, and I used my baritone that I had with me there. I just, in order to make it more palatable across the board, I just played a lot of it not using the lowest string. So, like, it sounds, I mean, you can hear on a portion of it that I'm using a baritone, but, like, if you don't know what I'm using, because the guitar is really not shown in the video, it still sounds like I just used
a guitar,
regular guitar tuned to standard, and what it was, I was just skipping a string. But yeah, I don't know. I've had times definitely when I still have. I think the difference is now I get excited about certain pieces of gear, not like what can they do for me.
Right.
Just like it would be cool to have that thing. I don't necessarily need it. And that's usually all I did, talking myself out of stuff. But it's nice. I treat everything as utilitarian at this point. Like I don't need any of it, but it's there if I want to mess with stuff. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting road that you find yourself like once you have like a pretty significant. I don't have a ton of gear, but I do have like quite a few. Probably as many guitars as you have. Maybe not. Actually, I think you have a lot of guitars.
Yeah, but there's 17 in this room, so I don't have too many.
Yeah, not nothing. Yeah, I have 15 guitars.
All right, so we're pretty similar in that regard.
Total. That's my total though.
Oh, well, yeah, I got you.
Not in this room.
Yeah.
Total. And what's interesting about that is it kind of, this has been the case for a little while now, a couple of years now, but it's only in, finally kind of having a bunch of gear. And prior to this, I used to have a studio, and I had a ton of outboard gear. And prior to that, I had a ton of amps. I had another room that I rented beside my studio that I stored the amps in. It was for the studio. It was it was part of the job, I guess. It was at a time prior to digital. Digital was just coming in. And the reason I sold all of it, most of it, was because of digital. And digital got good. Axe Effects came out, 11 Rack came out, and then the Pod HD came out, and they were good enough to make records, like really good. I was making records already with the Pod Bean, and they were fine. I figured out how to work with it, but
Same. Yeah, I made a couple of records with the Pod XT.
yeah,
And no one other than the people in the room ever mentioned anything about it not being an amp or not.
yeah, no one questioned it. And that period was interesting to go through because, it was just very informative in terms of where I was putting all of my attention and emphasis. And I was like, I don't need any of this stuff. Get it out of my life. And now I have a lot of guitars because it's kind of what my thing is about. I ended up with a bunch of guitars because of that. But I'm definitely at a point now where I don't want any more guitars other than similar to what you're doing. Like, I'm interested in builds. I'm interested in Warmoth style builds. Doesn't have to be Warmoth, but like that kind of a thing.
Yep.
That's because it's fun and like you say, it's creative or whatever. But the gas thing, I don't have it at all anymore. But I had to kind of go through all of that stuff to get here. And it's easy to say to people, it's like, oh yeah, the gear doesn't matter. Nah. But like, I've had that experience of like, I have had that firsthand experience. I'm like, the gear doesn't really matter. Just need a guitar that works okay. It doesn't even have to be an amazing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had amazing guitars. Do you have any EGCs left, or did you sell all of them?
I got one.
Oh, you got one left. Okay.
Yeah.
And
my original one, this guy.
right.
But yeah, this was actually like custom made for me. It like has my name engraved on it, and the only other one at the time, this was from 2011.
Right.
This was one of two that were made at the time. The other one went to Aaron Turner when he was in ISIS.
Of course.
This is an Aaron Turner signature series, the original one.
Yeah.
But yeah, his is reverse pickup situation, so he's got the P90 here and the humbucker there on his original one.
That's right, because he's a neck only guy.
Yeah, now he has the acrylic EGCs. But yeah, I had to part with my Tyranny this year because COVID kind of messed me up financially. But this one, it's with me until I'm dead or whatever. But it was actually like, and it was a big investment, and I had an endorsement with them early on. And I don't know. It's more sentimental stuff, which is weird. I don't have very many sentimental things in my life, but
right.
That's one. But if we're talking about like cheap stuff, like this guitar started out being $129.
It's an SX, right? Rondo SX.
It's an SX body, and this is a Warmoth neck, and it's all cheap components. I think in total it's maybe worth $300.
And that is your number one, is it not?
It's one of my main guys. It has been for years. Many necks, but my main number one is that turquoise build as of late.
Right. That makes sense.
And I've been playing this thing quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a sweet retrofit.
Yeah, it turned out nice. It's also got the fixed bridge thing down
yeah.
here. But yeah, great. I mean,
for those of you who don't know, that is a J Mascis Squire with a Warmoth neck. Warmoth neck?
Yep.
Yeah.
28 5/8.
Yeah. And a fixed bridge sort of. What is the name of that?
I can't think of that. I got it off Reverb. There's a gentleman there that makes them.
Right.
And this guy is also a build, and this is a WD neck.
Oh, right. Neck. 28.
2778.
Oh, 2778.
Yeah, they list them as 28. They're not actually 28.
Not quite.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's guitar finish body, and the rest of it's like Fender parts and whatnot. But I don't know. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not a terribly expensive guitar, but it's custom.
Yeah. Super sexy.
Yeah, it rules. But yeah,
That's sexy.
Yeah.
Did you see what I did there?
It was very good wordplay. Yeah, it doesn't take a lot, man. Like you don't have. I mean, any one of those, like I said earlier, would be fine. If preferentially, I'm going with the 28 and 5/8 just because I prefer the tension.
Yeah.
But sorry, I got away from it. I apologize, Apoplexia.
Get on that mic.
Yeah.
You know what? Do you know what it's called when you're right up on the mic and there's a lot of bass response?
Sexy?
Well, yeah, Barry White.
Yeah.
But it's also called proximity effect.
Well, yes, this is true. This mic is very directional, and as soon as I get away from it, I completely disappear. So I apologize.
But you're with us in spirit. I could hear you the whole time, but I have these like amazing headphones on. But we're at 10:01. We're gonna wind her down.
Nice.
I'd like to thank everyone for hanging with us. Synth Chris says he's heading out. Thanks for hanging with us, Synth Chris. Love your channel. Synth Chris, check out his channel. It's just called Synth Chris. It's amazing. Apoplexia really likes your Jazzmaster. It is something to like. One day I'm going to play it. I'm going to
play any of them.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out in that London.
Sure.
Play some riffs. Renato is winking, saying, I think that's a good night. Hello and good night. Development of a Void says, whoa, that neck. He's talking about your EGC. Yes, it's made out of aluminum. If you don't know EGC guitars, they are pretty incredible instruments. They weren't always expensive either. They used to be very reasonably priced, like $1,300.
Yeah.
But now they're like $5,000.
The price of aluminum went up. And
yeah.
then all of our trade deals in the States with China and other importers, right. It's a whole tariff nonsense. I'm pretty close with Kevin that owns EGC and Travis Bean now. And I don't know. A lot of the price stuff, just purely the materials have gone up in price. It's different than wood, like wood's wood, but like aluminum billet, he buys these giant, 40, 50 pound planks of aluminum, and then they get CNC'd down into a body.
And then they recycle all the shavings. Right.
But it's just it's a whole other world and a much more expensive. The machinery you use to do it is much more expensive and specialized. So it's a whole other thing. But I will say that it's worth the money because you end up getting something that's amazing. And it's really
literally forever.
Yeah. Like without going too far into this, I realize we're trying to get off here. No, I had a point with it where I was trying to clean something off of the bridge, and I had called Kevin to be like, I don't know what to do because I don't want to fuck it up. He's like, it's made out of metal. Throw it against the wall. Who cares? All right. He's like, treat it like a piece of machinery because that's what it is.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm just going to grab a few more here quickly. But Development of a Void says, I always go back to the MT2 no matter how many other amps I like. And and I think that's the case for all of us. We always go back to the thing that works the best for us. And it's only in trying a bunch of stuff that we figure out what that is. And sometimes it might not be the popular thing to other people. And that's fine.
My favorite amp of all time is a Fender Bassman.
Yeah. 6L6. That's why. Yeah. The
clean.
Original 6L6 amp.
Clean and loud, and it takes pedals great. Yeah. Amazing.
And 13 Flaws says the perfect amount of guitars is always one more than you currently own. I'm past it, but I know exactly what you're saying.
I think there are like two prefabs that I care about right now, and I don't really have any desire to buy either one of them. But
I want the Revolta.
That looks great, and I kind of want the current Jim Root signature.
Oh wow! Okay.
The white one.
Yeah, they are nice. They are very nice. I feel like they are beautifully designed always. And I'm like, what's that about? Like just the color palette and the smoothness, like the overall execution is really clean always. More so than most.
Yeah, it's a you know, it's very streamlined and
Yeah.
clearly down to business.
Yeah.
But besides that, I mean, I would love to have one of the Gretsch baritones. I don't need any more baritones, as clearly I've shown you.
Except
But
5 more.
yeah, and I do plan to build another one sometime this year. But
Yeah.
The thing is with building them is I kind of am like, okay, well that means I can get rid of another one, or like a lot of them, like 2 of those are my wife's, the purple one and the Jazz Master I built for my wife, and the white one that's kind of my jam, the older white one, the SX body one.
Yeah.
It kind of ends up being her thing too, because I keep it in drop A because it's a shorter scaled neck.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know, man. I just, they all kind of end up getting like, hey, you use it for a while. I'm gonna mess with this thing.
Yeah, I got enough to mess with. And the last one is Renato says, you mean like that Gretsch I don't have, like that Gretsch that Stephen doesn't have.
Yeah, I don't have it. I think it's the only baritone other than the Revolta that I really would like to have. And the Gretsch is fairly reasonable in price. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah, it's very, very affordable. I want that Viking as well. That Hagstrom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I had it for a second. I had it for like a second, and it was all effed up. And yeah. Anyway, but we're going to shut her down here. This will be the last time that I share Mr. Stephen's link. Gear Stuff and Things YouTube channel. It's in the chat there. Thanks, Stephen, for hanging out. We'll hopefully do way more of this. It was a fantastic evening. You know, for the rest of you, Nick Hill is in Florida. He'll be back next week. And he will be doing his stream on Saturday night as normal, which I believe is 9 p.m. Central Time. Am I right or wrong on that, Stephen? I think I'm right.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah.
I will be doing one on Sunday, which will be my first live stream here on
You're doing a YouTube.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Nick is Saturday, Sunday. Don't you do one on Friday?
Yeah, it's the trifecta.
Yeah, we got a whole weekend of entertainment for you.
Sorry, what was the time?
8 p.m. Eastern Standard, Sunday, the 21st.
8 p.m. EST GST live stream.
Yep. Yeah, anyone that wants to join and can, feel free. I realize it's a Sunday and people have to work, but I try to keep it at 8. I'm only going to do about what we did today, 8 to 10, and just general hangs.
Yeah, my first few streams, I went really, really long just to see what I was getting into and if it would break or how it would break and how I would manage it. But yeah, 2 hours is a long time to stream. So, but I think the adequate amount of time in order to hang out with folks. So yeah, looking forward to it, Stephen. Big surprise. Did not know. This is new to me. This is happening on air as we speak.
Yeah, I'm giving it a shot. I'll be doing it. It'll be here, YouTube and Facebook Live at the same time.
Are you going to do the whole thing? You're going to be using Restream? I saw a thing with you talking about Restream today.
Yeah, I tested it out today. Just to see if it would work, and I figured out the issues I was having. So
right, amazing.
Should be all right.
Fantastic. So yeah, check out Stephen's stream on Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. It's on the Gear Stuff and Things YouTube channel. Thank you for hanging with us today, Stephen. See you again in the future. Thanks to everyone hanging out in the stream, and for everyone with us over at Patreon. If you'd like to get involved with the Patreon to kind of keep it going, keep all this bandless stuff going, we'll be returning with the Nick Hill next week. The link to the bandless Patreon is in the stream. You should enjoy some more, a little bit more production next week. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to end the stream. Thanks to everyone. And we'll see you